All right, guys, we're going to get started here in just a minute, less than a minute. And okay, so hi, everyone. Welcome to our newest LinkedIn Live. Today, we have a really special guest, Michael Moriarta. He's a system engineering manager at Cisco. And as always, we have our founder and CEO, Ken Fee, here. Today, we're discussing the benefits of using behavioral analytics across your network and how that can help your business to improve threat detection. And from here, I'll turn it over to you, Ken.
Great. Thanks, Jen. Mike, welcome. Appreciate you making the time to spend with us today. We've met a number of times over the last few years, and it's always been a good conversation and talking about technology and with what you're doing with threat analytics, threat detection, and what we've been doing around zero trust and workload security. I think enterprise visibility is a hot topic for everybody. Maybe you could talk about your background prior to joining Cisco, kind of what you did.
Sure. Thanks, Ken. As always, it's great to be here. It's always good to talk to you. I Before I joined Cisco, I was with a smaller company, and even before that, I did a lot of vulnerability and pen testing. A lot of vulnerability and pen testing for a lot of the credit cards that we have in our back pockets today that unfortunately I'm still under NFR with, ISPs and so on and so forth. So yeah, I mean, I've done it all. Now, again, that was 10 years ago, very different than today.
Yeah.
So
It's but the stories are the same for me. It seems like I
yeah,
remember back in the late '90s, looking at where people were going, what people were doing around secure networks in the Marine Corps. I spent 13 years in the Marine Corps, and uh, you see people doing the same kinds of things, going places they shouldn't go, and now the threat vectors have really ratcheted up the ability for attackers just to go download some stuff and do reconnaissance is pretty interesting. And what we see with workload protection engagements that we're moving on, is we're seeing a lot of uh, surreptitious traffic. It looks very innocuous, but if you don't correlate that, if you don't analyze that, it's problematic for a customer. Maybe you can talk a little bit about what you saw 10 years ago and what you're seeing today.
sure. Yeah, in the past, we kind of had that, when we talk about the castle and the moat architecture. I mean, that is
Yeah.
really what we had. We had the north. We were worried about the north-south connections more than the east-west. We had firewalls placed at the borders at various choke points with IDSs and IPSs and so on and so forth, which really meant once they were bypassed and identified, you had the ability to move east-west in that environment. Networks were kind of contained for the most part. Blind spots were assumed.
Hmm.
You were okay risking the blind spots. Attacks were very manual and laborious back whenever I was a vulnerability and pen tester.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
today, I don't know, what I see with customers is they're much less tolerant of accepting a blind spot, uh,
yeah,
whether it's because of regulatory requirements, legal, or just fundamental compliance. And I think that's really due to the maturity of the tools that have come to market. But the problem is there are so many tools.
absolutely.
But I think visibility is really important here. What's your take on how do customers get to that, what we would call an acceptable level of visibility, so that they can manage and mitigate uh, threats?
Yeah, I mean, again, I'll just go back just a little bit. When we look at kind of like today is like what I like to call application and architectural sprawl. We have
Yeah.
hybrid workers, remote workers, on-prem workers, cloud, all of that is an explosion. And with all of that information that's out there, we really cannot have those acceptable blind spots. There are no acceptable blind spots anymore. We have to have
Yeah.
that visibility into everything that is happening, whether it's in the cloud, whether it's on-prem, whether it's hybrid, and even remote workers. I mean, we can kind of look at what was happening when the pandemic started. Everybody wanted that visibility into remote work. You know, when I look at the frameworks as far as NIST
Right.
and ISOs and things like that, one of the very first things that they talk about is you have to have that visibility. You have to understand what's going on in your network. A good defense in depth, right? That's what we always
Right.
used to talk about, is being able to identify what's lurking on that network.
Yeah, and that's we've been preaching that message for 20 plus years. I think about it is defense in depth, visibility, and probably one of the bigger, what I would see as a customer challenge today, an operational challenge is, hey, we've got all these great visibility tools, but what do we do with all the data? How do we parse through that? One person can't do it. How do you get there?
Right, and this is an issue for all defenders, and I call everyone a defender who's not an attacker, right? I mean, we have these big nation states that are getting subpopulations of people into the things that are just not so great. But really, what can we do with all of that data? We have to have some type of doing supervised or unsupervised learning. We have to have some type of analytics with that visibility, because the reality is this: we can get all kinds of information, right? But what can we do with that information? Are we going to store that information for extended periods of time? Or are we just going to lump it all together and have to be able to parse through it? You have to have a system that is going to take a look at that information, be able to parse through it, and be able to give you actionable insight into what is going on your network. And that's whenever I did pen testing, as I spoke to previously, it was fairly easy for me to navigate through the network without setting off too many alarms. Now and there are many, many different ways that you can get that visibility. But the reality is, with that visibility, you have to get to understanding that data. And that's the reality.
Yeah, and there's tons of tools out there.
Yep.
And just a consistent customer problem challenge. And sometimes they see it as a problem or challenge. Sometimes they see it as, hey, I've got a bunch of different tools. When I talk to large enterprise customers and I say, how many of these tools do you have? Some of them will say, well, I have all of them.
I was just on one of those calls.
Yeah, I have one of each. And then I, dig that, what's that next step? It's, hey, are you integrating and, are you using some kind of AI to look at this data, or you dumping it all into Splunk or something, something like a Splunk or a Sumo, or, pick your SOAR tool. And my perspective, and I think you share this, is there is no one tool that gets you all the way there, but what you have to do is build a collection of tools that talk to each other that work for your business.
Right.
And
yeah.
And that's there's tons of products in the market, whether it's Cisco or Splunk or Sumo, or there's tons of visibility tools, tons of log analysis tools. Everybody brings their own unique perspective to intelligence. The intelligence networks out there around. I think Microsoft's been a pretty big leader in shutting down a lot of these. Like the attacks on, the SolarWinds attack. And, because some of these things are DNS based, making some, taking some very aggressive steps to shut some things down. Cisco's done tons of great work here too. So, and I just think it's a very interesting space. And, what do you see in customers do around trying to solve this visibility problem?
So with anything else, and again, this is my opinion, it's being able to take all and correlate all those multiple data points And really, a good metaphor is this: taking multiple pieces of evidence and putting it all together to create a case that a DA can prosecute. You don't take one piece of evidence and all of a sudden say, "Oh, okay, let's go prosecute X." The same holds true, in my opinion, in security. I understand that that's reactive and not proactive, but the point I'm trying to make is taking all of those pieces of information and presenting it a way for us defenders to take action on. Getting all of the different systems to interoperate and make sure that they show the SOCs, hey, this is something that you need to take a look at. We have a little bit of a problem with a lot of various tools that are out there today with kind of an alert overload, if that's what you want to call it. We really need to mesh these systems together in order that there's communication between everything and get a better understanding of, okay, while there's not one tool to rule them all, we need them to all integrate and all have a single platform. When I say single platform, I'm not talking about vendors. I'm talking about creating that platform to say, okay, this is where I can look for my security data and meshing all that security data together.
Yeah. And so where do you see the line getting drawn around letting things like AI and ML take proactive measures without bringing in a human, and versus the things that you have a human do? It's like, hey, I can shut this one server off, but oh, by the way, that's the web server that serves our entire web presence and our revenue generation operation.
I get a little leery sometimes when I hear auto remediation. It's almost like we're, in the movie Minority Report, where a little ball comes down and says, "Hey, this security vendor or this server needs to be shut down." There's various things that supervised and unsupervised learning are very, very, very good for. As far as being able to shut down a production type of server, can it learn intuitively to understand that is okay? Well, it's a DHCP server that's sending out requests and replies and so on and so forth. But what happens if that has been taken over by an attacker and starts doing things like that? So I do get a little bit leery sometimes when I hear auto remediation and so on and so forth, but I think there definitely is a place for the AI piece. Again, I've had multiple customers who have been, they've set up integrations with other vendors' tools and so on and so forth, where basically they had set up the auto remediation and it was DDoSing a particular segment on their network, and they needed that visibility piece. And I was able to help them provide that visibility piece and identify that this is exactly what's happening. A particular segment on your network is doing this, and this is when you should have had a deprecated DHCP server that wasn't deprecated.
Right. And that's, and that kind of goes back to, I think AI and ML are great tools, but they're only as good as you train them to be.
Right.
And that still requires humans to think about use cases and be able to get that logic into the AI or the machine learning algorithms and let them process that. And then you got to test it. And this, I don't think there's any one tool you just buy, pull off the shelf and say, hey, let's go. You can do anything you want in the network. Everybody's networks have nuances. And then, determining if something's a bad actor or a compromised host within our own environment, you learn those things over time. And some things we can, we know because we've seen it 100 times before. But these other kind of more corner case things, I think, the visibility and alerting, the not getting 500 emails about tickets getting opened because of a threat event. It's about getting one email that makes that points you in the right direction to say, this is an issue, got to take care of it now, or pop an alert on a SOC screen.
Right.
But it's, and I guess my thought around this, kind of where Ken thinks about this, is all these tools are great, but they still require humans to make
Absolutely.
a decision. And
Yep.
and I think sometimes we try to take that human component of the equation out, and I don't think we can.
I totally agree with you, Ken. I don't think we can either, because who are the ones that are coding it? We can do many of the different things, and we always look at the weakest link, right? And again, I'll go back to my pen testing days. The weakest link on any type of network is humans. I used to, again, this is kind of giving away my age, but depending on the scope of work, I could leave USB keys in the parking lots, and humans are innately curious. So immediately when they would plug in the USB key, I had a remote access terminal hidden on that USB key. We can say even much the same to today, right?
Mm-hmm.
We could say today, they're just, instead of using USB keys, they're using apps that are on phones. And again, that's why when I said application and architectural sprawl, that's you have to have that visibility now.
Yeah. Well, and we all get these daily phishing emails. You can't avoid them.
No.
But those have gotten orders of magnitude more sophisticated.
Yes.
I got one yesterday, and I was like, "Huh." It says finance has shared this document with you, and I'm like, they're using the wrong domain name. It's kind of one of those. I see this a lot, so I process and analyze these things, and it comes from an old domain that we don't use anymore, not our current domain, and then and it looks just like a regular Microsoft message I've seen for real valid sharing things, where people shared a document with me, and then you go hover over the clickable link, and it's like going to some weird site, and that's where that's kind of the phishing vector. But those, that's today's USB key. That's
exactly.
No, you just click on, oh, hey, I got something from finance. I need to click on that.
And that's what I mean by creating that platform, is that once you do get something of that, I don't mean to say magnitude, but once you do get that email, that you have the ability to, okay, well, this came from email attack vector. How does that incorporate into my other systems? How do those systems communicate? And again, to me, it always starts with, okay, I saw that in an email system, right? So then that email system is going to talk to my endpoint system, that's going to talk to my, visibility system, that's going to talk to my workload system, that's going to talk to my, and it all brings it into that one platform where you can kind of have that. I hate to say it, but you have a screen that is giving you a visualization of many of the tools that are working inside your environment. I cannot stand the one pane of glass, single pane of glass, because the reality is we're never going to have it. This is a pipe dream.
Right. Yeah, but I think it's more about situational awareness.
Yes, absolutely.
And and this is kind of a constant in my life. When I was a Marine, it was all about situational awareness. What were you doing? Where were your people? Where were your aircraft? That visibility and knowing that information was key to being able to make good decisions about how you do things. And I think that very much pulls through into how we do network security, network architecture, network infrastructure, and how you protect that, and how you protect those, not just the network, but the workloads, where the apps are running, and the end users, and just because of the nature of the distributed nature of the world that we live in today. Some cloud, some on-prem, remote workers, on-prem workers. You've got to be secure everywhere. You don't just get to build that moat around your enterprise anymore. And that's a challenge. It's definitely a different way to think for a lot of people.
Yeah, and you can, just think of us as, like I said before, we're all defenders. The unfortunate thing is that one attacker only needs to get through. You could have 1.5 million attackers and block 1,499,999, but the one got through. It does make
that one that got through. Yeah. And, and that's, that's the challenge. I think visibility is a core component of that. On-prem and in the public cloud, that's where you start. And, it's an exciting time, because I've seen that these, what we were talking about doing 20 years ago that required tons of heavy lifting and months, if not years of work to get integrated and be a consumable, just day-to-day tool. Now we can do those integrations much more rapidly because most of the tools now have open APIs and are and are feeding collaborative intelligence databases. Look at things like CVEs. Everybody pulls from the CVE database and then uses that info to report on or identify threats. So I think it's an exciting time, but we've hit our just over our 20-minute mark here. And is there anything you want to share just in closing there, Mike, to wrap this up?
Not so much, other than that was we had a great conversation. I love talking with you. It's always fun to get together and have this conversation. You bring security people together. I think, again, that's the one thing I do like about the security community is that we can all come together and we can safeguard ourselves and so on and so forth. But no closing remarks other than it's been great.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's a great point. The security community as a team, and we at BTA, we try to operate as a team, and we're much collectively we're much more agile and able and capable as a team than just that one person that knows this very narrow set of things. Having that broader picture is always the key. But again, thanks for coming on and joining us. And I'm gonna throw it back to Jen to talk about what we'd like people to do after this.
Yeah. So we have a visibility assessment that we'd like you guys to check out. It would be a great first or, at any point in your zero trust journey, it's always great to figure out, what your level of visibility is. I've dropped the link to the registration in the comments. So if you guys, want to check that out or reach out to me or Ken or anyone at BTA, we'd be happy to share that info with you.
Great. Well, thanks everybody for joining us. We appreciate the time. And again, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out either via the link that Jen dropped or just hit our website. There's a contact us button there also. So again, thank you everybody. Have a great week.
Thanks, Ken.
Thanks everyone. And thank you, Mike. Thanks, Ken.
Cheers.